We want to get to that tweet that the president put out this morning. Joining us right now is Fox News contributor, former senior advisor for George W. Bush, Karl Rove. Karl, good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
You bet. Now, a point of personal privilege from a Texan. The name of the river that you talked about in the last segment is flooding. It's the Llano River, and the city and county that is being flooded is Burnett. Later on, we're going to take care of the proper pronunciation of Bear, Manchac, and Mahia, but let's start by the Llano and Burnett.
Okay. Did I say it incorrectly?
No.
No. Okay.
I'm not going to point fingers. I'm going to just suggest
somebody did, and we've got to figure out who that. Okay, we will check that. Thank you very much, Karl. And amazing that we're seeing this flooding. By the way, I mean those pictures are just horrible. So thank you. I want to ask you about the midterms. The Wall Street Journal editorial board's latest op-ed is titled "Growth is on the Ballot." The piece highlights the strength of the U.S. economy ahead of the midterms, says that the Democrats may revert to the 2019 debt limit to persuade Trump to raise tax rates. Your take on what is at stake with these midterms now 20 days away, Karl?
Well, I thought it was a great editorial. It pointed out that as a result of tax reform, deregulation, the administration's use of the Congressional Regulatory Act to roll back rules put in place by the previous administration, the green lighting of energy projects. It didn't mention it, but also conservative judges. All of these things have helped add to consumer confidence, business confidence, and as a result, strong growth. The headline's a little problematic because I think economic pro-growth policies are at stake this fall in the election. The problem is the Republicans, led by the president, have not made this the center issue of the campaign. We've been talking about a lot of other things, some of them having nothing to do with politics and diverting attention from what ought to be our central message, which is if you like the fact that the economy is growing, that paychecks are growing, that opportunity is growing, prosperity is spreading, then vote Republican. But we haven't been doing that as well as we should. Where we are doing it, candidates are tending to fare better.
Yeah, you're right. The messaging is such an issue. We've been talking about that all year. Karl, the other issue is the fact that, for Republicans, you've got, more than 40 people retiring or resigning, creating these open seats. And then for the Democrats, as we just heard, they only need 23 seats to get the majority in the House. How are you feeling about the midterms?
Well, I'm feeling good about the Senate because the map favors the Republicans. We have a lot more races in red states and a lot more Democrats up, almost 3 times as many Democrats up as there are Republicans. Only 1 Republican in a state that Hillary Clinton carried, 10 Democrats up in states that Donald Trump carried. House is more problematic, and it's going to come down to Charlie Cook yesterday moved the number of toss-up races from 31 to 30. He moved 1 Republican seat from toss-up to lean Republican. But of those 30 seats, 1 of them is now held by a Democrat, 29 are held by Republicans. If you look at the number of seats that are likely or lean or solid Republican or solid Democrat, likely and lean, the Democrats only need to take 10 of those 30 seats in order to win. The Republicans need to take 20 of the 30 in order to win. The good news for the Republicans is of the 29 Republican seats on that list of toss-ups, 23 are held by incumbents. And those incumbents have already survived an election in which they ran ahead of President Trump, and their districts were won by Hillary Clinton. So not over, but it's a very uphill climb for the Republicans.
Yeah, and let's point out that you have a new op-ed in the Journal as well, titled "The GOP's October Comeback." You write about how revitalized Republican voters are tightening midterm races. One quote reads this: "All this is a reminder that election results are not preordained or driven wholly by impersonal forces. They're heavily influenced by the quality of candidates and campaigns. With 19 days until the election, lots of twists and turns are still possible." So we'll be watching which important races in that regard.
Well, I talked about a couple of them today as emblematic. In the House, for example, Will Hurd in Texas 23, and then an open seat in Miami, Florida 27, have both moved in the Republican direction. The Democrats were absolutely confident of taking the Miami seat. They nominated Donna Shalala, who's a good person, but apparently tone deaf, and the Republicans nominated Maria Elvira Gonzalez, who is doing a heck of a job in her campaign. And that race, I think, is going to tip to the Republicans. So the good good candidates who focus on strong, important messages, actively get out there and share those messages that are important to the voters of their district, are finding ways to win. In the Senate, you see it up and down the line.
Yeah.
Heidi Heitkamp is gone in North Dakota. Kevin Cramer's going to beat her. Josh Hawley is doing better in Missouri and has now surpassed Claire McCaskill and starting to widen the lead. Martha McSally is in a fight in Arizona and doing well as we come down the stretch. In Nevada, our incumbent is doing a good job here as he comes down in a tough race. Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee is pulling away.
Yeah,
so the Republicans, where they have good campaigns and can focus on big issues, are finding themselves in a better place than might be expected.
Ted Cruz in Texas as well, despite the big money coming from Beto O'Rourke. Let me turn to immigration. This is one of the really important issues to voters. This massive caravan is making its way to the U.S. border right now. And the president tweeted out this morning that he could shut down the southern border. Here's what he said. I am watching the Democrat Party, led because they want open borders and existing weak laws, the Democrat-led assault on our country by Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, whose leaders are doing little to stop this large flow of people, including many criminals, from entering Mexico to the United States. In addition, he writes, to stopping all payments to these countries, which seem to have almost no control over their population, I must, in the strongest of terms, ask Mexico to stop this onslaught. And if unable to do so, I will call up the U.S. military and close our southern border, he writes in caps. The assault on our country at our southern border, including the criminal elements and drugs pouring in, is far more important to me as president than trade or the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. Hopefully, Mexico will stop this onslaught at the northern border. All Democrats' fault for weak laws. Carl, when he says stop or shut down the southern border, what's your reaction?
Well, it's a false choice. You can secure the border, if need be, by deploying U.S. military in support of the Border Patrol and federal agents, but you don't need to shut down trade in order to do that. I do think the administration needs to look more carefully at its policies with regard to these countries in Central America. We had the same problem in the Bush administration, where these populations, poor countries, are dysfunctional, and groups of their people were coming north. And what you need to do is work closely with those governments to help find ways to stop those people from coming by aiding those governments in making a better environment at home. And it costs a fraction of what it would cost to deploy the military to the border to do those kind of things in these countries.
Yeah, Carl, great to talk with you. Thanks so much. Carl
Lano and Burnett. Just remember next time.
I got it. Thank you.